Picture an incredibly successful tech company in your mind right now. You're probably imagining a platform that has just completely captured the zeitgeist.
Right, something that's on everybody's phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's say this company boasts over 150 million users, and they've spent, a full decade meticulously building and refining their product.
Which is a lifetime in the tech world.
It really is.
Yeah.
And investors absolutely love them, so much so that they've raised nearly $300 million in funding across 6 different rounds.
Oh, wow. That is serious institutional backing.
Yeah. And just a few years ago, in 2021, they achieved that mythical tech industry status, a $3.5 billion valuation,
A unicorn.
a massive unicorn. Just
Yeah.
picture like a titan, right? Like an absolute pillar of the modern digital landscape.
I mean, it certainly sounds like a company with an impenetrable moat. Those are the kinds of numbers that usually precede a company going public, or, I don't know, a legacy-defining acquisition that cements a platform into the daily lives of millions for the next 20 years.
Right. But as of yesterday, March 30th, 2026, that $3.5 billion titan surprised literally everyone by announcing they are completely shutting down.
It's still so wild to say out loud.
It is. Their doors are closing for good on June 1st. So in today's deep dive, we are unpacking the sudden, frankly, heartbreaking collapse of the beloved social virtual reality platform Rec Room.
Such a huge loss for that community.
Totally. And as we'll explore today, we are going to look at the incredibly surprising twist of its underlying tech and talent being quietly scooped up by Snap, the parent company behind Snapchat.
Yeah, it is a story that has just sent shockwaves through the tech world this week. We are synthesizing some fantastic, incredibly recent reporting today. Specifically, we've got these detailed dispatches from TechRadar and GeekWire.
Really great reporting from them.
Absolutely. And we're using that to really get to the bottom of how a giant falls and where its pieces actually land.
So our mission for this deep dive is to essentially answer 2 critical questions for you. First, why couldn't a platform with 150 million players survive in virtual reality? And second, why might the remnants of this failed VR company be the exact architectural blueprint needed to unlock the future of augmented reality?
It's a massive pivot.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer scale of the disconnect between their user base and their bank account is, well, it's dizzying.
It really is dizzying. I mean, to understand the collapse, we have to look at the incredibly blunt statement released yesterday by the CEO and co-founder of Rec Room, Nick Fate.
Yeah, I read that.
It was jarring in its simplicity, honestly. He stated that despite the 150 million players over the last decade, and despite that staggering valuation, the platform is shutting down because, and I'll just quote this directly, our costs always ended up overwhelming the revenue we brought in.
Ouch. It's just a brutal reality check. To help you visualize this business problem, imagine you're hosting a house party.
Okay, I'm with you.
But this isn't just a casual get-together. It's a spectacular, highly complex, never-ending house party. And as the host, you are on the hook for absolutely everything.
Which sounds stressful already.
Oh, it gets worse. You have to pay for an endless supply of gourmet snacks. You have to pay a small army of security guards. And you have to pay a massive utility bill to keep the neon lights buzzing and the music perfectly equalized in every single room.
Right.
And crucially, you have 150 million guests walking through your front door.
Which sounds like the most successful party in human history, honestly.
Exactly. The engagement is completely off the charts. Everyone wants to be there. But the fatal flaw is that as those 150 million guests eventually leave, none of them are dropping enough money into the tip jar by the door to cover what you just spent to host them.
Yeah, the math just doesn't work.
No. But here's the thing that really gets me about virtual reality specifically. To come to this house party, you have to put on a heavy scuba helmet, blindfold yourself so you can't see your actual physical living room, and promise not to check your phone or make eye contact with your real-world family for 2 hours.
That is a brilliant way to frame the friction of VR, because what's fascinating here is that this isn't just a Rec Room problem. It is a fundamental structural flaw in the economics of virtual reality itself.
Right, it's bigger than them.
Much bigger. When Rec Room was valued at $3.5 billion back in 2021, that valuation wasn't based on their current profits at the time. It was based entirely on a promise.
The promise of the metaverse.
Exactly. The industry-wide promise was that if you can just convince enough people to put on those metaphorical scuba helmets, the monetization will naturally follow.
But getting that engagement to translate into sustainable profit has proven to be an absolute nightmare. And I think we need to explain why running a VR platform is so much more expensive than running a standard, multiplayer video game.
Oh, it's exponentially more expensive.
Right. Like if you and I are playing a normal game on our televisions, the server really just needs to know the basic coordinates of where our characters are standing on the map.
Just XYZ coordinates? Simple.
But in a fully immersive VR space,
Mhm.
the physics calculations are astronomical.
Precisely. The computing power required is just staggering. In a user-generated VR space like Rec Room, the server isn't just tracking your location, it has to calculate the exact real-time angle of your left wrist.
Wow.
Yeah. It has to track the subtle tilt of your head. It has to render highly complex spatial audio, so if you whisper over your left shoulder, the person standing behind you hears it in their left ear at the correct volume.
That is so much data.
And the server has to synchronize all of that physics data for dozens of people in a digital room, calculating it 90 times every single second.
90 times a second.
Yeah, 90 frames a second so no one gets motion sickness. The immense server overhead required to process all of that simply bankrupts you if players are only spending, say, a couple of dollars a month on virtual t-shirts or digital posters for their dorm rooms.
So they essentially built a digital utopia that just bankrupted them. But what scares me is that this failure isn't isolated to just one Seattle-based startup.
No, not at all.
The reporting from Tech Radar points out that this is part of a much wider industry-level retreat from virtual reality.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the writing has been on the wall for a while. I mean, look at Meta.
The giant in the room.
Exactly. They essentially birthed this modern era of the metaverse concept. They poured tens of billions of dollars into it. But their flagship VR metaverse, Horizon Worlds, is currently undergoing what Tech Radar describes as a semi-shutdown.
That detail stopped me in my tracks when I read it. The absolute poster child for the metaverse is actively trying to get people out of headsets.
Yes, and that is a huge signal. Meta isn't killing Horizon Worlds completely, but they are dramatically shifting its architecture. The platform will live on, but they are heavily pivoting it towards smartphones.
So a flat screen.
Right. You can technically still play it in a VR headset, but that flagship, fully immersive experience on the Quest just isn't going to receive updates or new content in the same way. Meta is actively moving its chips away from the isolation of VR headsets and placing its bets on smartphones and, crucially, lightweight glasses.
Okay, so Rec Room is shutting down,
Yeah.
and Meta is quietly backing away from headsets for its own flagship social platform. That is a massive headwind, which brings us to the actual mechanics of Rec Room closing its doors.
Yeah, the wind down process.
Right. They released a blog post titled "School's Out for Rec Room," which outlines the bittersweet final days of a community that has spent 10 years building digital lives together.
It is a very somber dismantling of a digital economy, honestly.
Yeah.
The post details how they are handling the wind down. They are immediately offering 80% discounts on all items in the store.
A fire sale.
Basically, they're removing the exclusivity tied to their premium membership tier so everyone can access previously locked items before the servers go dark. And naturally, they are ending the ability for their top creators to cash out in-game tokens for real-world money.
Which was a big deal for some creators.
Huge. Some people made a living on that. But now, the economy is essentially being completely turned off.
But there's one detail in that School's Out post that I found really compelling. It's about preservation. They are actually allowing creators to download the custom rooms they've built over the years as standalone Unity apps.
Yes, though with a pretty significant caveat.
Right, it's only available via the Steam PC build.
Exactly. But it is a really nice nod to the fact that people poured thousands of hours into building complex environments, like entire games within the game. And Rec Room wants to give them a way to save their architecture.
And for anyone listening who isn't a game developer, Unity is essentially the raw development software used to build these games. And Steam is just a popular digital storefront for playing games on a regular computer.
Right, just standard PC gaming.
So Rec Room is basically handing players the raw architectural blueprints of their creations so they can run them locally on a PC, even after the massive multiplayer servers holding the whole universe together go offline.
That's a great way to put it.
They're giving you the blueprints, but the city itself is shutting down.
Exactly. The multiplayer magic that made those rooms feel alive will be entirely gone. You'll just be walking around an empty digital museum.
But downloading a dead world onto a PC monitor doesn't solve the core problem Meta and Rec Room are facing, right? The isolation of the medium, the friction of the scuba helmet.
No, it doesn't fix that at all.
And that friction is exactly what Snap seems to be targeting with the major twist in this story. Because just as the door is slamming shut on Rec Room's virtual reality ambitions, a window flies open in a completely different technological direction.
A huge pivot.
Late Monday, GeekWire reported that Snap Inc., the parent company of Snapchat, is swooping in.
That's right. Snap is acquiring select assets from Rec Room Inc. And crucially, a significant number of Rec Room employees will be joining Snap.
But they aren't saving the game. If you're a Rec Room player hoping Snap just bought the server farms to keep the house party going, you are entirely out of luck.
You are. What's fascinating here is what exactly Snap is buying, and more importantly, where they're putting these newly acquired employees.
Right. Where are they going?
They're absolutely not resurrecting the Rec Room game. Those employees are being moved directly into a newly formed hardware subsidiary at Snap called Specs Inc.
And Specs Inc. is brand new, right? Formed just a couple of months ago in January 2026.
Brand new. It operates as a wholly owned subsidiary, specifically designed to focus entirely on Snap's spectacles. That's their line of smart glasses, and it covers all their broader hardware ambitions.
Now, Snap has actually had a Seattle engineering presence since 2015, so they've been sitting in Rec Room's backyard for nearly a decade, just watching them grow. Yeah, they likely watched this unicorn rise, watched the engagement explode, and then watched the business model start to buckle under its own server costs. Snap explicitly stated they were impressed with the Rec Room team's expertise in building social multiplayer XR experiences.
And for context, XR is just an umbrella term. It covers virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality.
Right. So it is an incredibly deliberate talent acquisition.
Yeah.
Snap has zero interest in the intellectual property of the game itself.
None.
They don't want the cartoon avatars, they don't want the digital paintball guns, and they certainly don't want the massive server debt. They want the minds that built them.
It's just brilliant pragmatism. Snap isn't buying a failing VR game with a busted economic model. They are essentially buying the institutional brains of a team who has spent 10 years learning exactly how human beings want to interact.
How they want to play and how they want to build together in digital spaces.
Exactly. You can't just hire a brilliant coder fresh out of college and ask them to magically invent compelling social dynamics for a digital world.
Right, it takes trial and error.
A lot of it. The Rec Room team has essentially been running a 150 million person psychological experiment on digital socialization for a decade. They know how close people like to stand to each other in a virtual room.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they know what tools make collaborative building fun versus tedious. They know how to moderate voice chat at scale.
And that institutional knowledge is exactly what Snap needs for the future they're trying to build. Which brings us to the major paradigm shift in this story. Because if this newly assembled team at Specs Inc. isn't building a virtual reality world, what exactly are they going to create for Snap's glasses?
We are talking about the massive leap from virtual reality VR to augmented reality AR.
And if you've never experienced high-end AR, the distinction is fundamentally life-changing.
It really is night and day.
Because VR is about entirely trading your real physical world for a digital one. You put on that headset, you're completely blind to your living room couch, you can't see your dog, and you are entirely inside a computer-generated space.
Right. It's highly immersive, but as we discussed, it's deeply isolating.
Augmented reality, though, which is the entire focus of Snap's spectacles, is the exact opposite approach.
It is a blended in-person experience. You wear a pair of glasses that look relatively close to normal sunglasses.
And no scuba helmet.
No scuba helmet. You can still see the physical world around you with perfect clarity. You can walk around without bumping into furniture. You can make actual eye contact with your friends in the room. But digital holographic elements are overlaid seamlessly onto your physical environment.
The Tech Radar journalist who wrote about this transition actually shared some hands-on experiences with Snap's latest AR glasses, and it perfectly illustrates why this is the anti-VR.
Oh, the Peridot example.
Yes. They described a shared augmented reality experience with an app called Peridot. It's a multiplayer experience where a group of people standing in the exact same physical room, all wearing glasses, can see and interact with each other's virtual pets running around on the actual physical floor of the room.
Which is a completely different psychological experience from sitting alone in your bedroom looking at a screen. You're laughing together in real life.
Exactly. And the utilities go far beyond just gaming. The journalist talked about users being able to draw 3D art together, physically walking around their digital sculpture, suspended in the middle of a real room.
That's incredible.
And perhaps most impressively, they described a real-time AR translation feature. Imagine looking at someone speaking a different language, maintaining natural eye contact, and seeing perfectly synchronized floating subtitles appearing right beneath their chin as they speak.
That is wild. The journalist literally described it as feeling like magic.
It sounds like pure magic. And this is exactly where the Rec Room acquisition starts to make terrifyingly good sense.
Mm.
If you take the user-generated tools that made Rec Room so wildly popular, the intuitive tools that let normal players build their own interactive worlds, and you hand those tools to people wearing AR glasses out in the real world,
The possibilities are literally limitless.
that is the ultimate vision Snap is betting on. The killer app for augmented reality might not be some pre-packaged game that Snap builds from scratch. The killer app is giving everyday users the Rec Room-style tools to augment their own physical lives.
Just imagine the scenario. You walk down to your local boring neighborhood park with a few friends, you all put on your Snap spectacles, and because of the user-generated tools built by this former Rec Room team, you can instantly transform that physical park into a massive holographic paintball arena.
Wow.
Right. The oak trees are real, the grass under your feet is real, but the laser blasts flying past your head and the digital barricades you are hiding behind are augmented.
Or you sit in your apartment and turn your ceiling into a glass aquarium.
Exactly. Or you walk out to an empty concrete lot and overlay a perfectly rendered digital tennis court. It takes the boundless, limitless creativity of a digital metaverse platform and it anchors it firmly to physical reality.
It completely removes the isolating friction of the VR headset and turns the entire real world into a multiplayer canvas.
Yes, that's exactly the goal.
Hold on, though. I'm looking at the math here, and something isn't adding up.
Okay, what's missing?
If augmented reality means overlaying high-fidelity shared digital graphics onto the real world, that still requires servers, doesn't it? Heavy compute power, tracking physics in real time.
Oh, absolutely.
So if Rec Room just went totally bankrupt, hosting user-generated worlds in virtual reality, how does slapping those exact same worlds over a physical park suddenly make Snap profitable? I mean, changing the scuba helmet to a pair of sunglasses doesn't fix the empty tip jar at our house party, does it?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question, and your skepticism is entirely justified. The AR aspirations are incredibly lofty, and those astronomical server costs will absolutely still exist. Snap still has to pay the electric bill.
Right. So why do they think this will work?
Well, the core economic belief driving Snap, and frankly the same belief driving Meta's retreat from headsets, is that friction is the ultimate enemy of monetization.
Meaning, the harder it is to use, the less money you can make off it.
Exactly. The belief is that blending digital interactions seamlessly with the real world might finally be the key that gets the true mainstream masses on board. You don't have to convince someone to leave their reality behind for 2 hours.
Yeah, that's a tough sell for most people.
It is. You don't have to convince them to clear a 10 by 10 space in their living room just to play a game.
Huh.
They can just wear these glasses while they walk their dog, while they commute on the train, while they sit at a cafe.
I see.
The engagement shifts from a discrete, isolated gaming session into continuous all-day utility. And if the engagement is continuous, embedded naturally into daily life like a smartphone, the avenues for sustainable profit become much more viable.
Because they're always wearing them.
Right. You can monetize continuous behavior through subtle advertising, premium digital overlays, or utility subscriptions for things like that real-time translation we talked about. The hope is that by killing the friction, AR becomes the killer app that brings both the masses and the sustainable profits.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's summarize the incredible journey we just took. We started with the heartbreaking closure of a true tech pioneer. Rec Room managed to reach 150 million users, hit a $3.5 billion valuation, and still had to close its doors because the harsh structural realities of virtual reality economics simply couldn't sustain the immense server costs of the platform.
Such a wild trajectory.
And we saw that this local failure in Seattle is part of a broader VR exodus, with even industry titans like Meta actively pulling back from headset-first experiences.
But out of that collapse, we saw a massive pivot. We explored the tantalizing promise that the very same creators who built that massive VR world are now taking a decade of institutional knowledge to Snap's new Specs Inc. subsidiary.
Right. They're taking everything they learned about digital socialization and applying it directly to augmented reality.
It shows us that the dream of the metaverse isn't actually dying. It is just adapting. It's moving out of the bulky, isolating headset in your bedroom, and it's moving out into the sunlight of your backyard.
Which brings us to a final, somewhat provocative thought to leave you with today.
Okay, let's hear it.
If this vision actually comes true, if user-generated AR environments become the new normal for how we interact with the world, think about what that means for our shared physical spaces.
That's a huge question.
If anyone with a pair of glasses and the right software tools can digitally transform a public park into a laser tag arena, or, I don't know, project a giant holographic art installation onto the side of your local grocery store, who actually owns the digital overlay of your physical neighborhood?
Man, it is a completely uncharted legal and ethical frontier.
Right, like when the real world and the virtual world perfectly overlap, whose rules do we play by? Do you have the right to call someone to block a digital billboard that a stranger placed in front of your physical house?
The technology is clearly moving much faster than the zoning laws, that is for sure. It's a whole new category of digital property rights that society hasn't even begun to figure out.
It's going to get very messy, so the house party isn't over. The guests have just decided to move the party out of the street, and they're bringing the digital neon lights with them. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Keep your eyes open for the debut of Snap's new glasses later this year. We'll be watching closely to see what reality looks like next.